Well, committee, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we're down a couple of members. Hopefully they'll be here quickly. We do have a lot of work to do today. I appreciate you guys coming in. Committee, we will start with Senate Bill 94. And it is a bill that we had a hearing on last year. So we will need an overview, Amelia, if you don't mind.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 94 would discontinue the state property tax levies for the Kansas Educational Building Fund and the State Institutions Building Fund, and would provide financing from the State General Fund to those two funds. Specifically, this is a bill from last year. So if you will notice, the year that the levy would end in this bill was 2023. And the transfer of funds currently in this bill version would occur on July 1st, 2024. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Okay, Amelia, you have a handout of an RS number. Would you please, John, do you mind helping her hand that out? And to be clear, Amelia, on 94, it does provide the funding in the state general fund, is that correct? So they would not be losing the funding?
Correct. Senate Bill 94, if you turn to page 2 and I believe page 4 and 5, page 2 would provide a transfer of 41.8 million annually, plus an annual adjustment after the first year to the Kansas Educational Building Fund, and then a transfer of 20.9 million to the State Institutions Building Fund.
Okay, thank you. Committee, Senator Clays.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for staff. On the fiscal note, it shows the numbers that you just described, but it shows the current law, FY 2025, as a higher number. Can you give us some background on the discrepancy there between the two?
Eddie, would you mind?
I am trying to recall this from last year. I believe part of that is attributable to the fact that there is revenue that goes into these funds that's attributable not only to the ad valorem tax, which is eliminated here, but also the motor vehicle tax, which would also be effectively eliminated because the motor vehicle taxes are distributed based upon the pro rata share of the countywide average mill levies. And I think part of that might be that the dollar amount replacing it was tied to the ad valorem and didn't capture that motor vehicle tax. It also might have just been using non-simultaneous revenue estimates for these funds when the transfer amount was set here. And we have revised the revenue estimates for those funds a couple of times since then, so the numbers may not actually be exactly what is reflected in the fiscal information here at this point also.
Senator Clays.
Thank you. And then just one follow-up. If staff could describe what the current use of those two funds are, it's my understanding through the years that this is modified over time, what especially EBF was intended to be used for and what it's used for today. Maybe we can call Shirley, phone a friend.
Yeah, I would need to pull up kind of the full appropriations tables of those funds, but there is a very specific statutory description of the utilization for those funds, that would continue in existence. The use of the money in those funds would still be available for the same purposes under this bill as it is under current law. But I would have to check back and get back to you on the exact expenditures from those funds today versus historically.
Senator Clays.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be interested to understand exactly how that would operate at some point. I wouldn't hold up anything here, but there was a time when the Education Building Fund was used to construct actual buildings, and I believe we converted that to being a maintenance fund over time. So it would be just helpful to understand that the money's there to do those things and that it's accomplishing its goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any other? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not understand about the motor vehicle tax. Where was that at? Am I missed?
So the way the motor vehicle tax works is the county-wide average mill levy for the county where the vehicle is registered is excluding the statewide uniform school finance levy is applied to it. And then the pro rata share of that the taxing entities levy is distributed back out to them. So the state's 1.5 mill levies are part of that county-wide average mill levy, and so the state gets the share of it that is attributable to that. There is a 1-year lag in that because it's actually the county-wide average mill levy from the prior year that feeds into the tax rate on motor vehicles. But I think that when the numbers were put together to for what is the bill number even? 494, 14 months ago, I think it only used the revenue estimates for the ad valorem portion of the property tax and did not also capture the revenue estimates for the motor vehicle portion.
Senator Reddy.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the 2256 RS and Senate Bill 94. Is this an amendment to that, or are we replacing it?
Not yet. It will be offered as an amendment.
Okay, so sorry, another question.
You're fine.
So as an amendment, you're also adding then, just to be clear, eliminating the ad valorem tax reduction fund and the county and city revenue sharing fund and discontinuing certain transfers to the special city and alcohol highway fund. Is that correct?
That is correct. The logic behind this is that the LAVTR, if funded, is approximately, it's within a similar amount as the 1.5 mil. So you fund the 1.5 mil through state general fund instead of the LAVTR, and it's an actual tax reduction for Kansans. And we don't have to worry about all the arguments we heard of, will the money go for a tax relief or will it go to grow government?
I have one more question.
Senator Reddy.
Thank you for that explanation. So currently, the EDF fund and the State Institutions Building Fund are for specific Board of Regents or the School of the Blind and Deaf, so they go to deferred maintenance, such was indicated before. So my understanding from what you're presenting is that if the ad valorem tax and all of that should take care of that, or is going to address that? Is that what I'm
So there's
hearing?
2 different funding mechanisms on the ad valorem, the LAVTR fund, which confuses people. One is $54 million, which the governor puts in her budget. The other one is based off of her percentage of his sales tax. And instead of having the confusing language in statute, not being funded for over 20 years, we're just going to get rid of the language so that it's not there and provide true property tax relief for approximately the same dollar amount.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will make the motion to include RS 2256 language in Senate Bill 94. Is there a second on the motion? It's been moved by Senator Tyson, seconded by Senator Peck. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Would you like to be recorded? Motion carries. We're back on the bill. Just as a reminder to the committee, we did pass an amendment in the beginning of session that allows the reviser leeway for technical amendments. If anybody would like to repeal that, it stands throughout the rest of session that we give her the ability to amend and correct technical conflicts. So I will offer another amendment to clarify the dates so that we push it out just a year from where the original bill had, so that everything will start, since we are a year later in the process. It's been moved by Senator Tyson, seconded by Senator Peterson. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Would you like to be recorded? Okay, motion carries. Committee, we're back on the bill. What are your wishes? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senate Bill 94 absolutely reduces property taxes for Kansas citizens. And so I think it is a good thing. And since we have not, as you indicated, funded some of these funds for 20-plus years, we just as well clean up our statute books. Therefore, Madam Chairman, I would move that the Senate Assessment and Taxation Committee pass Senate Bill 94 as amended favorably.
It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Clays. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Would you like to be recorded? Senator Holland recorded, Senator Corson and Senator Reddy would like to be recorded as a no. Motion carries. Committee, let's turn our attention to another easy one. No, I'm kidding. Excuse me. Which one do we do? Let's go to Senate Bill 58, Committee. Committee, while Amelia's and all of you are getting your paperwork, I would like to welcome to the committee today the Majority Leader, Senator Alley, and the Vice President of the Senate, Senator Wilborn. We just went up in stature. Welcome to the committee. Well, Senator Alley served on the committee before, so he's very familiar, and we had Senator Wilburn last week, so welcome back. Amelia, thank you.
Madam Chair, Senate Bill number 58 would provide a sales tax exemption for certain purchases by disabled veterans. And if you, you may recall that I believe it was back on February 15th, work began on this bill, and maybe in your folders you have some balloons that reflect some amendments that have already passed as you work this bill. One of the amendments was to change the date, the effective date of the exemption from January 1st of 24 to July 1st of 2025. The second one was to add to the exclusions alcoholic beverages and tobacco. There was also a provision to expressly state that the exemption applies only to property and services that will be used for personal use. And then there was also an amendment that changed the disability rating requirement from 100% to 50% or greater. And I would be happy to stand for questions.
Committee, any questions on the legislation? I'm sorry, Senator Clays.
Just wanted to ask real quick on the state highway fund portion. Is there an adjustment for that, or will it have a negative impact on the state highway fund?
Amelia?
Madam Chair, this particular bill does not have language to adjust the state highway fund. I would have to defer to Eddie if he has any estimate of what that impact might be.
You know what we can do is just amend it so that we do not impact, or Senator Clays has an idea, which is wonderful.
Yeah, maybe it makes more sense as we go through this process to just find a bill towards the end after some of these pass and are signed into law, and we know what that adjustment needs to be, because we also have some historical transfers coming out of the state highway fund that are higher this year than in past years, and we could just make a single adjustment towards the end of session. But I'd just make a note of that. That might be the way to do it, Madam Chair.
That's a great suggestion. Maybe, do we need a sentence in the statute, though, so nobody panics that they're losing their funding? That there will be an adjustment made, or? It's questionable. Is the committee comfortable not addressing that at this time? And making sure that it happens later? It would, since we have the vice chair of Ways and Means, I think it will happen. Okay, I think the committee's comfortable with that. None of us want to have unintended consequences for transportation or any other directed funds. So, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had offered the amendment when we had started on this last time as it relates to alcoholic beverages and tobacco. I realized or was informed later that I should have also added electronic cigarettes, vaping, basically. And I don't have a balloon, but I thought since that was just a simple add to the balloon that, oh, I do have a balloon. Okay, yes, if you would distribute that, thank you.
Committee, I know that we see it, it kind of magically appears, but Amelia and Eddie spend many hours, many days working, and I know Amelia was working all weekend and not much sleep. I do want to thank her and all the staff. And Eddie, I know he's put those nights into, both of them have. We ask a lot, and I will add Kathleen to that list too. We appreciate staff. We could not do this job without you guys.
I echo that, Madam Chairman.
Senator Peck.
I certainly appreciate, thank you, Madam Chairman. I certainly appreciate our staff and the effort that they go through. I guess I misunderstood. I thought I just rubbed a bottle and they magically appeared out of the bottle. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so the committee does have the balloon, and it's just simply to add to the amendment that we'd already adopted, which was alcoholic beverages and tobacco, and then as you can see, electronic cigarettes, and then it's got the definitions. So I would move that we amend Senate Bill 58 with the balloon that was just presented.
It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Clays. Discussion on the motion. Senator Holland.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. No, overall, I'm supportive of the motion amendment, but I do have more of a technical question. Specifically, when a person buys alcoholic, say beverages from a liquor store, they're paying something called a liquor enforcement tax. That is not a retail sales tax. I'm assuming that anybody in the state of Kansas, whether a veteran qualifying for this or not, will still continue to pay the liquor enforcement tax on their liquor purchases.
Thank you. I'll defer to Eddie on that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this exemption only applies to the retail sales and compensating use tax, not to the liquor enforcement tax.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the reason why I say is because I appreciate the exclusion of the alcoholic beverages, but I don't know what that means at this point, because If you're buying alcohol in the state of Kansas, you're paying either liquor enforcement tax, you're paying a liquor by the drink tax at a bar, and
Senator, I think this is a precaution in case there ever becomes a sales tax on alcohol. That's all. This is
Very-
just a precaution.
very good. I'll be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Oh, Eddie.
The only thing I would note on that is sales at grocery stores do still have the sales tax, not the liquor enforcement tax on them. On all of the sales at grocery stores, it's the sales tax,
So
not
it
the
looks
enforcement
like
tax.
we've been remiss on updating the tax code. Sounds like we might have a bill next year. So committee, any other questions or discussion? I guess that's what happens when alcohol bill goes through another committee, right? Senator Alec.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologize for not knowing this in advance, but is there I have here on a number of 31,000 eligible veterans. Is that the right number?
That is approximately correct. We increased, it was about 8,000 with 100% disabled. We lowered that disability requirement to 50% so that we would include more veterans.
And they also show a number here of 75 million. Would that 75 million be the estimate on this?
Senator, we're going to discuss that in a minute. We may make some motions, some amendments to the bill, but good questions. Thank you. Senator Peck, back on the motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. So we are back on your question of 75 million. Yes, that is the current estimated fiscal note. So Senator Peck.
Madam Chairman, to clarify briefly for the two committee members who have not been in on the complete discussion, the fiscal note of $75 million would be if all 31,300 50% or greater disabled vets spent $50,000 a year in sales taxable items, which the Department of Revenue had communicated a couple years ago, so this is not up-to-date numbers, but they're still not going to be far off, that the average Kansan spends $60,000 a year, and of that $60,000, $25,000 a year is sales taxable. So my point is the 75 million fiscal note is, if it's a max, but it will not even be close to that if we leave it at the $50,000. Because it does not include automobiles, and now it doesn't include alcohol, tobacco, electronic cigarettes, which alcohol is only taxable in certain cases at grocery stores, basically. So I know we work with fiscal notes as are given, and this is the maximum possible that it could be, but I assure you, committee, that it would not be nearly this high. So I just wanted.
So committee, no, that's great, Senator Peck. Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the bill that was given to us with the amendment, the balloon, I suppose, there's no indication that it says 50%. It looks like it says successor and receipt of disability compensation at 100%.
Senator Reddy, we amended it in committee to 50%.
Okay, so this is not the,
No, you had to take notes and write it as we were going, sorry. We don't have an updated printed version.
did we do that this year?
Yeah, we did it February 15th.
No, if it said 50, then it's been.
Yeah,
and
I
then-
remember the date.
And then the highest possible they can receive is 50,000 per year.
But I think we're going to discuss that,
Okay,
the 50,000.
this is not the amended one. Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? So Amelia, do you want to go over those parameters again so the committee has a clear understanding? Senator Reddy, she'll address what's been amended from the bill, so.
Yes, this most recent balloon that was just adopted, the amendment that was just adopted did not reflect all of the changes that are the motions that had been made in the past while working this bill. So you have the one from today, but you should also have from February 15th, the date change to an effective date of July 1st of 2025. Again, the alcoholic beverages and tobacco being excluded. There was also an amendment that provided that the exemption shall apply only to property and services that are used or will be used for personal use of the eligible person or their spouse or surviving spouse and not used for the production of income. And then there was also an amendment that struck the 100% rate and provided that the disabled veteran have a 50% or greater disability rating.
And to be clear, so that the committee understands, this exempts all sales tax, not just the state. It's also local, and that keeps us in streamlined compliance. Is that correct?
The bill would be streamline compliant.
Thank you. Okay. Committee, any other questions or discussion? Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So even on the online one and the one in front of us didn't indicate the 50%. So is the fiscal note with 50% to 100%, 7.9? The fiscal note says the same thing. It didn't indicate the change in that.
Eddie?
The fiscal note for the bill that is online would be the bill as introduced. I believe Senator Alley had mentioned some numbers earlier. I imagine the Department of Revenue provided those. I don't actually have those numbers in front of me, but the fiscal note that appears online would only be for the bill as introduced. At this point, the committee hasn't actually issued a committee report on the bill at all, and so the record of these changes are the committee's own records.
Okay, just wanted to clarify the fiscal note might be different then.
The fiscal note is absolutely different than the original fiscal note. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Since we've been discussing the fiscal note, just to point out for the committee in section 1B, page 1, you will notice that it says sales qualifying for the exemption authorized by this section shall not exceed $50,000 per year per eligible person. There's been discussion that $50,000 is too high, which I'm going to be on the other side of that. But because that could be a maximum of, in round numbers, 5,000 per disabled veteran. So I'm going to, Madam Chairman, throw out a number. I'm not going to make a motion at this time because I would like for the committee to weigh in on the number, but cutting that 50,000, again, the 50,000 is taxable purchases. So you're only getting a sales tax exemption on, your sales tax exemption doesn't total $50,000. So I'm going to throw out for discussion, and then I can certainly make a motion for a different amount, but to get the ball moving forward, to set that at 24,000, which is less than half, and that would be, and the reason I picked 24,000, that would be $2,000 per month in sales taxable purchases, and it is pretty close in line with what revenue had indicated in years past would be the amount of money that the average Kansan spends for sales taxable purchases in the state. So I thought I would just throw that out and see. The committee may want a different amount, and I'm certainly flexible to go down from there. I don't really want to go up, but I'll listen. So I'm not making a motion, Madam Chairman, but I guess I'm curious as to where the committee would want to fall. And if a motion is needed to start the discussion, I can do that, but I thought it might be simpler just to have some open discussion before we set a dollar amount, reduce the dollar amount.
Thank you, Senator Peck. I want to go back to the fiscal note, the $75 million that Senator Alley asked about. Excuse me. Is that include 100% disabled, or is that at the 50% disabled? Senator Peck, Eddie, do you mind?
My understanding is that is with it at 50% disabled. At the 100% disabled, it would be much more close to the number provided in the fiscal note as published online.
I just wanted to clarify that because by decreasing it as much as we've probably cut that fiscal note in half is a reasonable estimate, would you say, Senator Peck?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Absolutely. More, if we go from 50 down to 24, it would reduce the fiscal note by more than half. And again, Madam Chairman, I'm confident in my own mind that the average disabled vet will not spend $24,000 on sales taxable items when you exclude vehicles. But again, the number that I threw out is a starting discussion point.
Thank you, committee. Senator Holland?
I apologize, the committee, I'm getting a little bit confused here. I want to be sure I understand this. The 75 million, was that based on the 50%? Or
The 75 million was based on the 50%. That's why I asked
Okay,
the question.
okay.
So that means approximately 31,000 disabled veterans would qualify for the program. So what we're trying to do is make a reasonable fiscal note.
Right, but in that 75 million, the average, what was the average sales qualifying for exemptions? What was the average sales figured in for each of the 31,000 veterans?
Senator, or Eddie, if you want, okay, Senator Peck he's aware of that.
Thank you. And I'm going from the notes that I had made, Senator, when the Revenue Department had given us the number. That would be if all 31,350% or greater disabled veterans made purchases at the maximum of $50,000 per year. So I'm confident they will not make, I don't make.
Okay, and then a final question, Madam Chair, or how do we track this stuff? You're going to say, I mean.
So that is an excellent question. There's currently some tax exemption programs for others. That will be discussed, and that's why we put the date of 2025 on it, to allow the department to work on that. Senator Holland.
So I guess what I'm wondering is that instead of trying to cap this thing, why don't we put a sunset in the legislation where we can get some data from the department and figure out what these come in at? And then if we got to go back and somehow cap it and figure out, but I don't understand how we're going to real-time track this and say, oops, they just went $1 over. I'm just trying to figure out, for just ease of administering the program, if maybe we don't get hung up about putting a not to exceed in here, let's just let it run a couple years and see what it does.
Well, I think, Senator, we're thinking along the same lines, except not a sunset. So we think if we brought the cap in and see how the program works, that we can make adjustments in years out. But I would hate to implement the program and then pull the plug and not have it available to our veterans. Any other comments, committee? Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there other sales tax exemptions where we keep track of it with a cap of you can only get up to this much? So this would be the very first bill that would have a cap on it?
This is a new program that we are establishing here. Yeah, that's why we wanted the flexibility for the department.
Okay.
Senator Holland. Senator Reddy, I apologize.
So out of all of the sales tax exemptions we have on record, this is the first bill that would have a cap? I don't mean with just disabled veterans, but out of all of them. Okay, thank you.
We do have sales tax exemption programs, but it's limited on certain types of products that that they can purchase. But this is not limiting the products other than personal use. And as the amendments, the alcohol, otherwise they can, any sales tax item that came in below, they could make the purchase. It wouldn't limit them. So it is a completely different, if the committee would like to explore a different route, that's fine. But that's why we're discussing it here and trying to work the legislation. Senator Corson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. I really would like to see this bill in some shape or form and appreciated Senator Peck letting me be a co-sponsor of it. My question is, I'm not necessarily opposed to a cap if that's sort of the will of the committee. I'm just wondering how that would in practice be enforced. Like, how would a merchant, say, hey, you're at 24? How would
Senator
I don't know how much I pay in sales tax a year. I wouldn't know when
Senator
I've hit
Corson,
it.
it would be the veterans on their honor, and then if they were audited, so.
Yeah, again, I'm okay with whatever the committee. I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I hope we get this bill in some form because I think it's a positive step forward. So thank you.
Senator Alley.
One more question, Madam Chair. How does a merchant know that the disabled veteran has this in the first place?
They would be issued a certificate by the Department of Revenue.
And should that not be, to Senator Corson's, how much do we spend? Should that not be recorded somehow?
Well, Senator, we're hoping by the time this is implemented that there are electronic magnetic cards that can be scanned and keep track. But that is not in place right now. Right now, it would be on your honor.
And then the final question, Madam Chair.
Senator Alley.
Previously in this committee, I think you heard from legislative post-audit. And we heard that the most problematic thing that we have with bills is they only estimate the base bill. They do not estimate or do not provide a fiscal note for the amendments. So I would suggest before we go to the floor, if this passes out, that we have a better fiscal note on it.
So, Senator, I will remind you how we operate. We do get fiscal updates from revenue before we go to the floor. They've always provided those to us, and we usually talk about them on the floor. Where the confusion lies and where the audit was confused was they only looked at the online, what's available online for the fiscal note. The caucus, the body, we all have the updated fiscal notes by the time we work those bills on the floor, as we will this one. And what Senator Peck is trying to do is to lower the fiscal note considerably. If we come in at 24,000, then it would limit it to half. If we come in at 12,000, it would limit it to a quarter of the 75 million is what the estimate is. But we would get up that update. So excellent question, and we very much appreciate you requesting that audit. It was very good for us to see in black and white. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and maybe I just need to be reminded of previous discussion on this, but it does include a current cap of 50,000 according to this. So we're just deciding where the cap is, right? It's not whether or not there is a cap. We're just placing it somewhere. So they based it all off of the 50,000 that's in the bill now, and perhaps I agree with Senator Peck that perhaps there should be a cap of some sort, and 24 seems reasonable. So all the things that we're talking about as issues with having a cap will exist one way or the other. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? Committee? Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was thinking it might be just easier, as was Senator Holland was saying, maybe just not to have a cap. I don't know how many people would go to 25,000 or 50,000. And I don't know if that completely changes the fiscal note on it. But I think it just seems like an extra burden to figure that out. And if everybody wants the cap on it, that's fine. But I just feel like it's just extremely difficult to track such things. And by the time it's all done, we still may not be happy about how it's being tracked.
Any further comments? Seeing none, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the discussion, and I agree, honestly. I personally wish we didn't have a cap, but I think for making certain that we have a fiscal note to work with, and then we will know once the program is implemented how effective it is and how much it actually reduces revenue. I guess the reason I don't like a cap is because a lot of our neighboring states don't have a cap that have a sales tax exemption, but we are not our neighboring states. So I'm going to go ahead for purposes of moving forward, vote it up or down. That will be up to the committee, but I'm going to make a motion that we strike the 50,000 and reduce that to $24,000 for the qualifying items, total qualifying items that would be sales tax exempt, and it is based off of the honor system. So our veterans are lot of the most honorable people in our country. So I would think there will be abuses in this, just like any other sales tax exemption program. But I'm trusting that our veterans will do their best to not exceed that 24. So I'm going to make a motion for it to be 24. Madam Chairman, we'll see if it goes from there.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Clays. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Would you like to be recorded? Motion carries. We're back on the bill. Senate Bill 94, or I'm sorry, 58. Sorry, committee, I'm a little behind this morning. Committee, what are your wishes? Senator Corson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that the Senate Committee on Assessment and
Don't make that motion, please. Thank you. I love your eagerness, but Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I make a motion that we delete the contents of House Bill 2036 and insert the contents of Senate Bill 58 as amended.
Is there a second on the motion? Senator Corson. It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Corson. Discussion on the motion. Senator Peck.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
I apologize, if I may.
Senator Peck.
For clarification, thank you, Madam Chairman. This would be a substitute bill, and the reason that I am making this motion to handle it in this manner, two reasons. One, it is a House bill. If the House so chooses, they can concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill 2036. Additionally, 2036, we had lengthy discussion about the legislation, the constitutionality of it, and several other factors. Senate Bill 58 provides a tax cut for all disabled veterans, even those who do not own a home. In 2036, you had to own a home to receive any benefits for any type of a tax reduction. So that is my thinking, those two things. And so with that, we'll move my motion to amend and the substitute bill be created.
It's still seconded by Senator Corson. Is that correct? I think you're it. If you want your bill. So you've heard the motion. Is there a second on the motion? Well, I'm not going to leave my vice chair hanging. I will second the motion. So we all know that there's issues with 2036. We know that it doesn't matter the bill number. We're trying to help the veterans here. So let's, committee, any other discussion on the bill? Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't move forward with the substitution. I heard from a great deal of my constituents that are based on Fort Riley, as well as in Manhattan, all of Riley County. I'm on the Veterans Council. I'm on the Military Governor's Military Council, and I've heard from all of them. There are strong proponents for HB 2036, regardless of what we are talking about. We are talking about substituting a property tax for a sales tax. So I have to at least listen to my constituents in this component and make sure I'm listening to what they're saying, and I feel like these should be two separate bills. Thank you.
Senator Clays.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification. Do the contents of 2036 exist elsewhere? I thought we might have had a discussion where we ended up amending that into something else. Did we do that?
Currently, no.
Okay.
This would strip the contents of 2036.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I fully understand the hesitancy because 2036, we've heard from disabled veterans that they would like to have a property tax cut. I'm with that. I like that. I just don't see it as being workable. I don't see it as being constitutional. If we're worried about a fiscal note, the fiscal note on 2036 is significantly higher than what we will have in Senate Bill 58. And the fact, again, that we are looking at a tax cut for all disabled veterans, whether they own a home or not, is my preference. If I thought that we could make 2036 work, I wouldn't have made the motion. I just do not see how we can make it work with a reasonable fiscal note and any type of constitutionality. So it'll be up to the committee, but I have made the motion, and I'm going to not withdraw the motion. I'm going to let the committee either vote it up or down because of the fact, well, I guess I've said what I'm going to say. There's not much else to add. I just have, I want to get something for disabled veterans, and I see Senate Bill 58 as the way to accomplish that.
Well, and Senator, I'll remind you, we did pass the Homestead 2, i.e. golden years, which was is a property tax freeze for disabled veterans. We tried to expand that last year. We had it in CCR 8. It got vetoed. But, and this committee has had that discussion again. So that is property tax relief for disabled veterans. This committee works very diligently to support our veterans. We've done more than expected, and I should say this committee has been extremely active on putting forward legislation for veterans. The only other committee I would say that does more for veterans is the House Veterans Committee. So I'm proud of our work that we've done to help the veterans. Senator Holland.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Madam Chair. I do like this legislation. I do like the fact that we reduce this down to a 50% disability compensation. And to me, this pairs up really nice, once again, with HB 2239, which we passed a couple years ago. Once again, that was property tax relief for disabled veterans at 50%. So I think we have some excellent legislation here from the sales tax sides that dovetails with the 2239, and I'll just tell my colleagues, make no mistake here, we need to go back and we need to basically sweeten up the golden years legislation 2239 and make it a little more robust, and our veterans will benefit from that as well as all other fixed income seniors. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll be supporting the legislation.
Thank you, and I'll remind the committee also, we passed 2 years ago in that same legislation an increase on the personal exemption for 100% disabled on their income tax. So it was an income tax cut also to our disabled veterans. This committee has done quite a bit of work, again, to honor those who have served and the families who have sacrificed. Any other discussion? Senator Clays.
Just a quick question for the maker of the motion. So is the rationale here then that this makes SB 58 more likely to pass if it's structured in this way and allows the House to bypass the committee process? Is that what you're thinking? Just to help me out on the rationale for this.
Senator Peck, I apologize.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. No, I appreciate the question, but no, it's not intended to bypass the committee process. Any legislation that passes one chamber or the other historically has been conferenceable. So this does not kill the language in 2036 as it relates to if it can be moved forward in conference. But again, when you look at the fiscal note that we have on 2036, if we're worried about fiscal notes, which there's been a lot of discussion about that, it's up there. And from Senate District 15, which is a district that I sit in and represent, 58 provides much more benefit for constituents in Senate District 15 than 2036 would. So I'm not trying to bypass the process, but to expedite the process.
Senator
Madam
Claes?
Chair, maybe I phrased that poorly. I'm just looking for the process. What is the process that it will go through here now that you're making this motion as opposed to what it would have otherwise?
So it will, hopefully we'll pass it out of committee and not lose legislation. Then if leadership decides to bring it above the line, we'll pass it over to the House. Once the House receives the legislation, as with any, they can concur or they can send it to conference committee. They have options, other options too.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Committee, any other discussion? You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Would you like to be recorded, the no votes? No, okay. So, yeah, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would make a motion that the Senate Assessment and Taxation Committee pass Senate substitute for House Bill 2036 favorably.
Moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Tyson. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion, would you like to be recorded? Motion carries. Committee, we have a little bit of time. Does anybody have committee after this? Two senators, okay. So we won't be able to go much longer. We do need to pick up Senate Bill 509. It was my intent to work it. However, I found out at the last minute there was an amendment that was, like I said, Amelia worked all weekend, guys. It wasn't on her. It was thrown at her at the last minute. And so we need to pick that up tomorrow or possibly Wednesday, but we will be working Senate Bill 509. The, okay, Senator Peck, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I sincerely appreciate our staff. I'm going to take responsibility for us not being able to move forward because I do have an amendment with some moving parts that I believe really does improve 509. It addresses some of the concerns I had, some of the concerns that other individuals had. So again, please don't put it on staff at all. If you have discomfort or want to blame anyone, it's the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We're not blaming anyone. We just understand that there's a lot of moving parts on legislation this big, and we want a good product. We want the best product possible. So we will be working the legislation depending on how the hearing goes tomorrow. If we have time, we'll pick it up tomorrow. If not, committee, would you be willing to meet at noon on Tuesday? I know we've done that before. We'll provide lunch. Oh, we can't. There's a chairman's lunch. Does this take priority or the chairman's lunch? Tuesday or Wednesday, committee, which would you rather meet? We may need both days. Well, I will find out. I will make arrangements and then we'll make announcements. Committee. Any other business to be brought before us? Seeing none, we're adjourned.